Hey guys, I want to welcome you back to another episode on J of All Trades. Today I'm standing in my closet and I'm ready to do the third part of this project. To my left here, I just recently redid all of this section here, as well as a section in the back that I'll show you guys in a little bit. Now I'm here ready to do this third part of the project, which is this wall to my right. Now I want to redo this entire wall with a board and batten design. And here, these are two hangers that I was using for clothing. I want to get rid of those and put some hangers that actually tie in well with the other side as well. I also want to upgrade these switches to more modern switches, and I also want to replace them with white switches. And we're going to do the same thing with the outlet on the bottom here. It just looks really dated, and we also want to make that white as well. We're going to be replacing these two light fixtures here. One is right here above me, and there's one right there as well. And we're going to be replacing those with recessed lighting. That's going to give it a more modern feel, and it's also going to make the space feel a little bit bigger. I'm also going to be putting dental molding all around the perimeter of the closet. So we're going to have some nice crown molding here, and that's just going to make everything tie together nicely. So let's begin. First thing we're going to do is remove the hooks and remove all the anchors. If you have some really strong anchors, just use a drill bit and drill it out. In my case, I had some really strong toggle bolts that were in here, and one of those bolts are rated for 200 and something pounds. That's hard to believe, but that's what it says. And for regular anchors, you can simply just use a flathead screwdriver, and that's more than enough to get them out. Once you get all your anchors out, you can take a knife like this and just simply scrape along these holes just to make sure that it's nice and clear of any debris, because we're going to be patching this up with some compound. I find that when you're filling in these holes with compound, it's easier to put two coats. The first coat is just to fill in the hole, and then once it dries, you'll see that it sinks in a little bit, and then you'll put the second coat on top of that and sand it down. Here I'm going to update these switches and cover to a white color, and I think that's going to really tie in well with a white wall. And I'm using a portable light here because I had to kill the power to these switches in order to work on it. Keep in mind that if you're not comfortable with doing your own electrical work in your home, you can always get an electrician to do this part. If you do decide to do this on your own, make sure that the power is off. Here I'm just removing both switches out of this box here, and I'll take a look at all the wiring. And based on what I see a line over here that goes to the first switch, and then there's a jumper that goes to the second switch. So that is feeding the power, and then each switch is individually controlling two sets of lights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install a smart switch, and as you can see, this has two black wires and a ground as a normal switch would have, but then it also has this neutral. Most smart switches require a neutral because smart switches hook up to your Wi-Fi, and the switch needs to be powered on at all times to communicate with your Wi-Fi. So this neutral will be wired up with that neutral there, and the other remaining wires will be wired up like a normal switch. Here I've skipped ahead after all the wiring was done, and I will be coming out with a very detailed video on how to wire up smart switches in the future. But for this project, I really want to focus more on the board and batten design that I'll be putting on this wall. Even with this small upgrade of color on these switches, I could already see it looking better on the wall. Here you can see that the white cover and switches actually look better on it already. And now I'm going to do the same upgrade for this outlet here. And as you can see, I have a tester here just to make sure the power is off, because as always, safety is first. Here is a side-by-side comparison of this outlet, and you can see that it makes a huge difference just by upgrading that to a white color. Once again, if you're not comfortable doing your own electrical work, you can always get a licensed electrician to do it for you. Here I can see that there is a neutral coming in and a neutral going out, and on the other side I also see a line coming in and a line going out, probably jumping to another outlet. And then of course you have a ground. Here I'm attaching the ground to the green screw on the side. Next I'm going to wire up the two neutrals, and that goes to the silver screws. And the lines always go to the gold screws. So that's a very good indicator of what side you need to be wiring this up in. I have a more detailed video on how to wire up outlets, so I'll include a link in the description for that detailed video on how to wire up an outlet. I've got to say, just by changing the color to a white outlet and a white cover makes such a huge difference against this wall. And it'll even be a more noticeable difference when the wall is painted white. Here I'm replacing two light fixtures with this GE light fixture, and this is a recessed lighting kit. And this is the 4-inch version, but they do also come in 6 inches. And I'll include a link in the description for this if you guys want to check it out. Here is my existing light fixture. And the first thing I did was I removed it. And once again, make sure the power is off when you're doing this. Once you get this off, just take a look at the wiring to make sure that you understand exactly where things are going here. And this is a simple wiring. It's just a line and a neutral. So here is the line that I'm disconnecting right now. And here is the neutral that I'm disconnecting on the left. I'm skipping ahead to remove the blue electric box, and I'm replacing it here now with this new box that came with the recessed lighting kit. And here I'm just going to put it right into the ceiling. And on the recessed light itself, it has a selector here that allows you to choose between 5 different color temperatures. So that's really cool. One of the things that I really got lucky with here is that the hole for the old light fixture actually was the perfect cutout size for this recessed light. That's a rare occurrence, but I'll take it. Here I'm just sanding everything down after giving this a second coat of compound, and you want to just slide your fingers right across this to make sure that it's smooth and level with this existing wall. After my arms got tired with the sanding block, I switched right over to this Ryobi palm sander, and I'll include a link in the description for you guys. It made sanding this wall a lot easier for me. And as you can see, there's a hose hooked up to it to help with the dust. I'll include a link for this Milwaukee vacuum cleaner as well. Now that everything is all sanded, we can remove these covers because we're going to put a nice coat of paint on these walls. One of the things that I want to point out is that I taped the top of that baseboard heater to avoid paint getting on it. However, you're going to notice that I didn't put any covering on the floor, and that's because I'm very comfortable with painting. But if you're not so confident, I wouldn't take a chance with it. Once I finished painting the wall and everything was dry on it, I was ready to put my board and batten on there. Once I measured and cut my pieces for the board and batten, I used wood glue behind the wood to go directly up against the wall, and then I'll also nail the wood right into the wall using my brad nailer. This glue will give it added holding power, and this is made by Tight Bond, and I'll include a link in the description for you guys. This glue holds strong even on painted surfaces. When you first start out your board and batten design, you want to start at the bottom first. And you're going to place your first starting piece straight across. Now the key is you want this piece to be level because everything that you lay on top of this is going to be depending on this being level. Then I'll use my brad nailer here and secure it straight into the wall. If you have any obstructions in the way where you need to put your board and batten, you can always cut out a section and still put it right around. Then once you make your cut, just install it straight to the wall. I like to apply the wood glue in a zigzag pattern. This helps to have it dispersed evenly and give it extra holding power. Another thing I like to do is just give it a couple presses and make sure that the glue kind of flattens out in the back there, and then I'll secure the piece with the nail gun. Here I'm using an 18 gauge Ryobi brad nailer. I'll include a link in the description so you guys can check it out. Now that we've seen how to do a piece with a cut, let's use 2 pieces together to create one length. Now here, you simply just cut the first piece and apply it straight to the wall, and then you'll put the other piece right on top of it and then secure it, and that will make up your full length. Since I'm joining these 2 pieces, I deliberately put it over at this corner here. This way it'll be even less noticeable in any joins that you make. Always use a level to just double check that everything is straight and plumb. Now that we have the ends done, we're going to need to do the middle. Now you want to do center to center for a balanced look, and the optimal gap depends on the wall width and your desired style. Here I'm using a long level with some measurements on here to help me out, and this is going to help me to divide everything evenly and make everything look uniform. You want to make sure that you evenly space these out, otherwise it's not going to look good. Now that I have some marks as exactly where the center is, I'm going to be using a little line here just to indicate exactly where I need to line up those centers. For this particular process, the level will be your friend. And here the board and batten piece is 2.5 inches wide, so the center of this will be 1.25 inches. So I'll line this mark up with the mark on the wall, and I'll know that that's in the center. So here's an example of exactly what I'll do, and if you look carefully in the front, you'll see that those two marks are lined up. Now that I have everything marked out, I'm ready to glue and then secure this straight to the wall. When you put this in, you want to make sure that you put a level up against it as it sits on that mark, and this will indicate exactly where you stand. And then once you have everything nice and straight, you can secure it straight to the wall with your brad nailer. Of course, with my luck, I have to make 2 cuts, one at the switch and one at the outlet. How does it work out this way? Well, because the even spacing of these ended up landing in these spots. And sometimes there's no avoiding things and you just have to work around it. Here I'm just removing a little section so I can go around the outlet. It's now time to put a horizontal piece right on top all of these. Then we'll finish it off with a piece of molding right above this piece. Here's where it really pays off to do everything level, especially when you start out with that first bottom one. It really ensures that when you end up at the top, you're going to be level all the way through. Here is a narrow molding with a design on it that I'll be putting above this. Right now it has a raw wood color, but I'll be painting it once I install it on the wall. Before painting this, I'm going to be using a caulking, and this is caulking for molding, and I'm just going to be filling in any creases that I see here, and this is going to give it a nice clean finished look. Spending the time to really fill in gaps or any creases really makes a huge difference in the appearance of this. And here I'm going to be removing this cover for the 3rd time, and I'll be painting the inside edge of that board and batten there, and also removing the cover off of this outlet to do the same thing in the bottom. Once the paint dried and I installed the covers, I wanted to install 3 black picture frames here. So here I'm drilling holes for the anchors. One thing I must say is that these picture frames make a huge difference in this space. It really ties together really well with the board and batten wall. Next, I'll be installing a few hooks up against the wall. I'll include a link in the description for these particular hooks that I'll be using today. First, I'll screw in all these pieces right along the board and batten piece on the top. Now we're going to place a cover right over this and then screw this right in. Here's a look with the hooks and the picture frames in place. One of the key things to point out with this design is to evenly space things out here to give a symmetrical look. And now I'm ready to work on the crown molding, and we're going to be putting dental molding all around the corners of the ceiling. And I'll be painting all of this white, but here is the original natural wood look if that's what you're looking for. However, I'm going for the white look. Before I install this dental molding, I'm going to move these picture frames out of the way so I don't damage any of them. I also need to remove a section of molding that's up here to allow me to fit the dental crown molding, and I'm going to be using this oscillating tool to remove a section. This tool does really well with tight plunge cuts. Now that I've gotten this section clear, I'm all set to install the dental molding all the way around. I'll first start out by putting these small pieces because they're a little bit easier and their corners can help to support the longer pieces when I'm ready to install those. Once again, this Ryobi brad nailer comes in handy to do any kind of molding, and it really does a good job of securing this stuff to the wall. The longer pieces are a bit more challenging because of their length, and it will definitely help to have a second person holding the other end of this. One thing to note is that most likely you're going to need caulking for molding because the ceiling is never perfectly flat. Once again, I'm going to be using this paintable caulk, and this is a type of caulking that just has a little bit of give and flex to it, and it won't crack when it expands or contracts during the winter or summertime. It's specifically designed for molding, among other things. You're going to want to spend some time and run this all along the edges here on the top and the bottom, and this will fill in all the gaps. Now that we've gotten all the detailing done on our crown molding, let's take a look at how this section of closet looked before we started. And we can see that it really didn't connect to the other side. And here is how this section of closet looks now, and it looks completely transformed, and I believe it ties in very well with the rest of the closet. The crown molding makes it feel grand, and the board and batten wall makes it feel classic. This concludes this entire project for my closet. Please be sure to check out my 2 earlier videos from the beginning of this project. I'll link both of those videos in the description. I want to thank you guys for joining me on this project today. If you found this video to be valuable, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. I hope that I helped some of you to come up with some great ideas for your own spaces, and let me know in the comment section down below what you would like to implement in your own space. And that's it for now. Until next time, I'll see you guys again on J of All Trades.